Humans learn through repetition, and that's why your flight instructor has the ability to just gently caress the airplane through every which maneuver and land the airplane smoothly every single time because they fly every single day. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I really messed up my steep turn today, and oh, I bounced that landing, how does my instructor do it perfectly every single time? Well, just from repetition. That's nothing that you can't replicate. So sure, you can start spending money out of your own pocket to rent an airplane every single day to go get those skills, but when I was a student pilot, I was a broke college student. I didn't have cash to do that. But I did have this, my home flight simulator. And I'm telling you guys right now, you don't need anything fancy on your desk. This is the same exact equipment I've been using for the last 6 years. And once you invest a little bit of money to have a decent setup and a $60 game on your computer, you can practice anything you want as much as you want at no additional cost. So today I want to use the sim to show you something that I did during my instrument training to save me a lot of time and money and give me that extra repetition so that I was more proficient every single time I showed up to the airplane. When I was an instrument student back in 2020, I used to do something that looked a lot like this. I'd take off from John Wayne nice and early in the morning, right into the marine layer, get some real-world IMC time, intercept the localizer runway 30 into Long Beach, go missed, VOR Alpha into Fullerton, go missed, do a hold, and then I'd come back to John Wayne, shoot a localizer or an ILS approach, land and call it a day. Get 3 approaches in under an hour, and it was awesome. Now, full disclosure, to make this a more realistic experience, you can hop on the Pilot Edge network or the VATSIM network. I've tried some of the AI networks to record this video previously, and they get really buggy. They don't fully understand what you're trying to request, doing approaches over and over again. They're really only good for point A to point B stuff. However, I can still go in here, and I can practice all my IFR procedures, practice my scans, loading the FMS, and doing every single thing I'd have to do in the real airplane. And I always love to fly with real-world weather, but because Southern California is nice and sunny today, I'm just going to go ahead and choose my departure airport of John Wayne here, go to my flight conditions, and instead of doing live weather, I'll click that off. I'll grab this cloud layer here. I'm just going to drag it down so that I have the overcast layer being right above my minimum, so I'll break out and I'll have a very, very thick cloud layer. I'll make it super dense, and I'll make it 100% covered. So I'm going to be in solid IMC for this whole exercise. So here we are. We're all set up for the most part. I've got to set my departure heading of 220. That's what ATC always gives us. They always tell us at or below 2,400 initially. And we have the flight plan here. John Wayne over to Long Beach with the ILS 30 loaded up. We can see that the ILS frequency has already been loaded in there, and I even have flight events enabled right now, so I can see my position. Even though I'm in Phoenix physically, my airplane is over at John Wayne in the sim, and you can see it over there too on the approach chart. So we're going to take off, vector ourselves to final, probably between Lucig and Gunny here. So it's going to be a nice little intercept there, somewhere in that realm. And we'll shoot the ILS, go missed, and then shoot the VOR Alpha into Fullerton. Because things happened very quickly when we're practicing approaches back-to-back super rapidly, I'm going to brief this approach now. So we're doing the ILS 30 to start at Long Beach. All the frequencies are at the top. We already know what the weather is, so I'm not going to worry about that. 110.3 is tuned already into our nav radios. Final approach course of 301, Gunny 1600 for our glide slope intercept. Decision altitude of 58, and I have 260 bugged for the Barrowmans. Additionally, airport elevation of 60 feet, touchdown zone 38 feet, MSAs on the right-hand side. Missed approach, climb to 800 feet, left turn 3,000, heading 200 outbound on the LAX 145 radial tip Hatter. And then that hold is drawn out there. But I'm going to vector myself before we get there. But we will fly the initial missed approach procedure and do that left-hand turn. Pappy and a Mauser, we need 1,800 feet RVR or half-mile visibility, so we can deal with that. We're ready to go, though, so it's going to be lights, camera, and then action with the mixture, and we are going to take off. Here we go. Up into the soup. Up into the clouds we go. I'm going to get us a flight director here. Going to give us heading mode for 400 feet and flight level change for a climb at about 80 knots. Back to runway heading momentarily. There's 400 feet, waiting for 450, which is 400 AGL, and now we'll start our turn. We're heading of 220. Excellent.
Destination ATIS is 127.75.
And we've already got our weather. Thank you, Siri. Well into the clouds now. Very bumpy. Actually quite hard to control the airplane. Go ahead and turn our taxi light off. And we will keep this climb going to 2,400. So here we are with the autopilot on, capturing 2,400 feet, going to set my cruise power. And this is a pretty typical vector. I'm on a heading of 250, and I need to get over there, of course. So I'm going to grab Gunny here, press menu, activate leg. This will activate the approach, switch the needles over, and now I just have to vector myself to get over there. As we bring it in a little bit closer, now would be a good time to tune the altitude down to about 2,000. And I'm going to use the autopilot here. Make my life a little bit easier. Not my primary means of getting around, but a nice tool to have, treating it like another crew member so I can focus on some other tasks. And we'll keep it turning so we're nice and parallel to the course. And we'll say that ATC has given us a vector to intercept the final approach course. So I will turn my heading. You could see my heading bug of 340 coming into play here, and you can see where it's taking me on the MFD. If I kind of play with it, you can see that blue line develop right there. So I should intercept, the final approach course, or the localizer, somewhere in there between Lucig and Gunny. So now that I have been cleared, or I'm saying I've cleared myself for the localizer, I can go ahead and arm nav mode. And since I have green needles here, it's going to go white, and as soon as it's close enough, it will capture it. Now I have the autopilot off, and I'm going to be hand flying the airplane. I just had the autopilot on to assist me while I was talking, explaining things, and briefing things. But you can see where we are on the approach chart. You can see where we are on the MFD. You can see where we are in relation to the localizer. I'm going to hold 2,000 until I capture the localizer and until that glide slope comes in. When that localizer starts moving in, I will arm the approach, and life will be good. The key thing here is that we are below the localizer. If I was above it, I'd have to chase it. So if I pressed approach being above it, it wouldn't work. I wouldn't be able to capture the glide slope unless I manually caught it. But now that I'm below it, the glide slope will fall neatly into the center, and then we will be able to capture it. So now I'm just doing my scan. I'm looking at my attitude indicator, over at my speed attitude indicator, looking at my turn coordinator attitude indicator, over on the right side for my VSI and my altimeter, back to the center, left, center, up, center, and there's our localizer. Going to go ahead and arm approach mode. So we have localizer. Glide slope is now white. Very sloppy. This is a nice intercept angle, though. I'm going to go ahead and set the final approach course into my heading bug. Keep on scanning. Here comes that glide slope, so that you notice the glide slope is still white. It is not active yet. It is armed so that when it's in range, when it gets to the center, it will go green and it will activate. And after that activates, I can set my missed approach altitude. I'll get my altitude bug ready here. Still in altitude select mode. Here comes the glide slope. We're right on the localizer. Glide slope is now activated, and we are following it down. I'm going to slow down to about 90 knots here before I cross the final approach fix in a mile. And missed approach altitude was 3,000 feet. So missed approach altitude, 3,000 feet. Grab my altitude bug right there. Now it's set to 3,000. And here in SoCal, I like to do the approaches with no flaps because there's always an airliner in front of you or behind you, so they want you to actually go pretty quick. And if they want you to speed up on an approach, it's better to not have flaps in. So that's some local knowledge. I understand most of you guys probably shoot your approaches with flaps 10 or 20, or 25 if you're in a Piper. But we are past our final approach fix, our glide slope intercept now, and we are on our way down. I'm a little bit fast, but I'm going to keep on scanning. Center, left, up, right, center, left, center, glide slope, center, turn coordinator, center, localizer. Starting to see some ground come in from the left side of the screen. That's pretty good. Quick look down at the chart. Remember, it's climbed to 800 in the left turn to 3,000 on a heading of 200. Some going to get my heading bug ready on my hardware here so I can flip it on over. And if my workload is high, I can rely on my autopilot as a second crew member to alleviate some of that stress while I am doing my missed approach. So the autopilot can fly for me, and I can get everything set up and then retake control. Again, pressing my scan. Center, left, center, localizer, center, glide slope, center, turn coordinator, center, localizer, center, left. The neat thing about the simulator is that I don't have any actual feeling, and you would think that's a bad thing. And, of course, you'd rather learn this in a real airplane. However, it's actually a helpful tool because I am very much forced to trust my instruments here. I don't have any somatographic illusions. I don't have anything that my body is telling me to do that's throwing me off. I am fully looking at my instruments. I don't have any force feedback on my plastic hardware on my desk. I am fully reliant on what I see on my panel in order to make this work. 700 feet for 260 or 258. That is my minimums. I'm going to shift my camera upwards a little bit to see if I get that runway in sight. And localizer, glide slope, localizer, glide slope, center, speed, center, turn coordinator, center,
500.
speed, center, glide slope, center, localizer. Nice and fast scan. 500 feet on the altimeter for 258. And I must have accidentally hit my barrow down a little bit. I see the rabbit. Nice and gentle movements, the glide slope and the localizer being very sensitive as we get nice and low. The runway is in sight, but we are going to do a missed approach. So we'll pretend we don't see it. There's minimums. Full power. Don't have to clean up any flaps. Go flight level change. Swap our nav source. And there we go. It is suspended. For some reason, I'm in roll. That's okay. I can fly runway heading myself until 800 feet and get ready for the turn to a heading of 200. Here comes 800 feet. There's 800 feet. Go ahead and press heading mode. And we are climbing to 3,000 feet on this missed approach procedure. I still feel in positive control of the airplane here, so I don't think that I need to be using the autopilot yet, although it would be a helpful tool. I'm climbing very quickly, so I'm going to go ahead and use the flight level change function and get my speed down and my climb rate up. Maybe I can bust out of these clouds and rely on my visual sight pictures for a little bit to alleviate some of that stress. There we go. And now we can fly outbound and brief our next approach. We've climbed to 3,000, we're on our heading, and it's time to brief the next approach. I'm going to pull my power back just a little bit and lean the mixture ever so slightly. No reason to be hauling through here. I want to save gas and save a little life on the engine. I'm just going to pull it back into the green range. 2250, 2300 is a good idea. And I've got Seal Beach VOR plugged in there on both of the nav radios already. Final approach course is 020, so I can go ahead and tune this guy up to 020. You can see it happening right here. So that will be good. And then the final approach fix is the VOR itself at 2,600. So we will be crossing the VOR and then going inbound like that. We do have GPS on this aircraft, so we do have VWALT, which means our minimums are going to be 760. So I can go ahead and plug that in just a moment. Missed approach, climbing right-hand turn at 2,600 via 145 heading, and then inbound on the 058 radial to the Seal Beach VOR, which is a heading of 238 approximately on the 058 radial, and then you can hold as published. But we should have just enough height on the overcast layer for us to get down today. I'm going to go ahead and vector myself towards this approach now. The heading of 120, and we can go ahead and get this loaded. I have removed the previous approach from the GPS, and I am now loading Fullerton as my new destination. On this vector, very nice. Airplane's holding 3,000, rate at 90 knots, 2,200 RPM. Life is good. So now, Fullerton is in there. I can go to Procedure, select Approach. I can go to the VOR Alpha, and I can do vectors as well. Barrow minimums, we said it was 760 because we have GPS and we can identify that intersection of B Walt. 760. And because I'm vectoring myself, I'll just activate the approach now. There we go. So we can see the final approach course on the MFD pop up. I can see my final approach course right here on the HSI because I have already programmed it. And we know that the VOR is well and away over to the left-hand side. So I can go ahead and go intercept that now. I'll go ahead and rotate my heading bug over. And we can go ahead and intercept that a pretty long ways out. And we have to cross the VOR at 2,600, as we can see on the iPad there, on the JEP chart. So, go heading of 040, arm nav mode, so it will capture the VOR when it's within range. And I will now go set my altitude down to 2,600, vertical speed, no rush. We are within range of the VOR. The airplane acting a little aggressive compared to the real thing. Going to take a sharp intercept angle. It's not necessarily correct. It would ease its way over a little bit more smoothly than that in real life. But we'll go ahead, keep the speed down, and let it intercept our final approach course. So this is definitely one of the harder things about the simulator than real life, is that I can't physically, unless I spend a bunch of money to have hardware on my desk, G1000 and such, I cannot physically reach up and grab knobs and twist things and do everything. And I don't have an iPad mount. I've got to put it somewhere funky on my desk or look down through my microphone to see it on my lap. And it's kind of a mess. It really is kind of a mess. But I've got the autopilot here, so I'm using it as a second crew member. And when everything is briefed and everything is good, I can take the autopilot off and then practice hand flying the procedure. And if I want to analyze my work after I do this flight lesson here, I can go ahead and just look at my ground track. You can see the entire thing labeled out through here on my map, and then I can save it and then critique myself and give myself a nice debrief. Now we have the airplane all set up. I'm going to go ahead and start hand flying the airplane now and throw in a notch of flaps. I will try to shoot this approach at 80 knots so that I can stay in category A, which gives me the lower minimums to shoot this approach. I'm going to cross the VOR at or above 2,600. We're about to cross the VOR. I'm going to go ahead and turn the flight director off because I don't want it messing me up as I manually fly this approach. If you look at the approach chart that I have in my lap right now, I'm crossing the VOR at 2,600, and then I need to be at 1,500 for B-Walt, and I have B-Walt, so I am restricted to that. And now you see we are in the zone of confusion right above the VOR. So I'm not going to change anything. Everything was great beforehand. Now, coming back a little unrealistically fast. Takes a little while for this to load, but I am past the VOR. I can start a descent now to 1,500 at B-Walt. And I have missed approach altitude set. I'm not going to bug 1,500 because that would be some extra work for me to do right now through hand flying on the simulator. In real life, I might go ahead and bug that because it's much easier for me to do. But also, it's one other thing I could potentially forget in the event of a missed approach. So, no big deal. I'll just be adamant on my altitude.
Cross Delta in 3.7
2,500 for 1,500 at B-Walt, which is in 2.6 miles. Reducing my power so that I can descend and not pick up a bunch of excess speed. Again, doing my scan, I'm a little right of center on this radial here, the 020 radial. Speed's good. Center. VOR, center. Altitude and VSI, center. Got my turn coordinator back to the center. Little overloaded right now. This is a good amount of work. 1.7 miles to B-Walt. And 600 feet to go. Back to the right a little bit as I see the localizer moving back to the center. Left center, right center, bottom center, top center. Always just going back and forth between all of these things. 2,000 for 1,500. 1.2 miles to go. Do not want to bust 1,500 at B-Walt. Still in category A, so our minimums are still 760. Very good. All right. A little over half a mile, 300 feet to go for B-Walt. Managing my descent rate so that I don't have to level off very long when I get to B-Walt. I'd rather just have one consistent path on the way down. Getting a little fast. I wanted to be 80. I was okay at 85, but now it's getting a little bit away from me. 150 feet to 1,500 at B-Walt. Now 1,600 for 1,500. 0.1 mile. I should be able to just pass it. There it is. I have just passed B-Walt. I'm 50 feet high. No big deal. I will keep the descent going. I have 2.4 miles until Judlow, my missed approach point, and I can get down to 760. At this point, I can put the nose down, dive and drive, because the sooner I get the airport environment and the ground in sight, which I can see it poking through, so I think I'm going to be able to see the airport here, the sooner I can join a more visual approach to this instrument procedure. Don't get too fast, otherwise my minimums will change. I will get unstable. 1060 for 760. I see the ground coming into play. That's very good. 960 for 760. 900 for 760. That's the airport there. Very nice. We have everything in sight. Let's say I'm cleared to land, and I'm going to circle for runway 24. I'm going to go ahead and grab my MDA. I've just gone below it. That's a little bit of an oopsie. Not by much, but still did. And I'm going to turn for a left downwind. And we're just passing the numbers here. I can start descending for my approach to landing. So I'm leaving the MDA. I'm going to get my flaps down to 20 in a moment. And you can see us descending on in. Airport elevation of 96 feet.
500.
So I'm starting this base a little bit lower than what I usually would on a normal VFR approach. Go ahead and do flap 20 now. Keep the nose down. If I keep the nose down, I won't stall. A little bit of a dog leg. Flap 30. Power towards idle. Get the airplane slowed down. Gas, undercarriage, mixture, prop, power, lights on, seatbelts are secured. We are good to land. Back to the top. Don't feel like these pappies are correct. I look pretty good right now. Short runway here, about 3,000 feet, so we'll just bring it in right above the numbers. Chop the power, get ready to plop it in. There we go. Line up with the center. Little shaky. Welcome to Fullerton. I'll tell you guys right there, I did exactly what we just did, the ILS 30 and the VR Alpha into Fullerton, on my IFR check ride. So I'm very familiar with those procedures, and it's something that I practiced dozens of times in the simulator before my instrument check ride, at the start of my training all the way through my check ride. So it's a wonderful exercise. I can practice unlimited amounts completely for free once I buy the $60 game. Again, I've had the same equipment on my desk for 6 years, and I'm still able to practice this stuff to stay proficient today. Before we fully conclude, I just want to go back to the original point of repetition. You can go load in and do these procedures back to back to back. You can do your exact flight lessons that you're going to do in real life, whether it's IFR stuff like we did today or VFR and just ripping 100 patterns. If you need to work on something, you can do it over and over and over again. You can change the conditions, change the wind, change the ceilings, change airplanes. And if you're doing instrument stuff, if you think flying jets is fun like I do and like I did when I was working on my instrument training, go ahead and hop in an airliner. Procedurally, everything is the same. The way you fly it, of course, is different if it's a jet or a single engine piston, but procedurally, everything is the same. So you're still getting the same practice of briefing the approaches, setting up the missed approach, and overall just flying the procedure. So it's all great practice, and you can do it over and over and over again at no additional cost once you buy the game. And with that, we can officially conclude this video lesson. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. If you want to see a certain topic covered, or if you have any critiques for me, please leave them below. I want to make the best educational content for you guys. If you guys like learning from me, you want to see more, you can check out my Patreon, Flight Sim University, where I have an entire course that takes you from your first ever private pilot lesson all the way through your first solo. It's still in development, and as of recording, it is available for only $15 a month. My mission is to make aviation more accessible for everybody, so while I can't bring down the physical costs of your real-life flight lessons, I can teach you the fundamentals of flying an airplane, all the private pilot maneuvers, how to aviate, navigate, communicate from the comfort of your own home on a desktop flight simulator. And that is exactly what I have done with Flight Sim University. If you're skeptical and you don't want to spend any money up front, there are 10 free videos in the basics module teaching you everything you would learn in your first couple of flight lessons. Thank you guys again so much for watching. My links for my socials and my Patreon page will be in the description, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye-bye now.